Dripping Bucket Podcast with your hosts, Krystle Matar and Michael R Fletcher. Now sit back and prepare to be entertained. Welcome to the Dripping Bucket
Both of us. Is that me? Both of us or you both of us?
I just wanted to see how long you would be silent if I didn't say anything, and it didn't actually last as long as I thought it would. You cracked the pressure for you.
Should let it go. Anyway,
welcome
to the Dripping Bucket Podcast. Holy fuck, we're back. And once again, nailing it as always.
Yeah.
Today we're going to do something a little different, and we're just going to shoot the shit about things and stuff.
Because you finish books, which is a personal insult to me.
I write short books.
Yeah.
You write long books, which is insane.
Yeah, mine is the one I'm working on. Oh, I should double check my facts. If I was a prepared person, I would know what I'm talking about, but I'm not. So the one I'm working on is at 73,000 words at the moment.
So it's 73% finished.
No, it's not. It's not. How do you... Okay, I gave you advice in the last episode, Fletcher. How do you write short books? Please tell me how to write short books.
Okay, so
okay.
It's a little tricky, but basically, so what I tend to do if I'm looking for something that's fast moving, and that is a different kind of book from like a Legacy of the Brightwash, which is takes more time, doing things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I love a good doorstopper. One of the things I do is I set chapter lengths. Fairly arbitrary. So what I will do is I will say 2,000 words is sort of my goal for a chapter. If it goes to 3,000, cool, but I really don't want it going over 3, and the closer to 2 it is, the better. 2,000 words, and I try and end every chapter on like a what the fuck, or at least a like, oh, that's interesting. Like, how's that going to play out?
Yeah.
I want the reader to go like, you fucker. Okay, I'll go to sleep after the next chapter.
One more chapter.
And that's easier to do with shorter chapters.
Yeah.
When you're writing like that, and you're trying to end each short chapter with a like, at least a little bit of a what the fuck moment. You're sort of by definition being forced to move things along. You can't have a 7,000 word chapter where they're smoking cigars and drinking whiskey and talking about their dads. It just doesn't fit, right?
But that made you cry, so
it did. It was a great fucking chapter, but it's like it's a different kind of book.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, for Legacy of the Brightwash, I guess I probably would have looked around the 100,000 word mark for somewhere to end it. And then boom, there's a novel, and guess what? I've got the next novel and a half already written, and sort of released them like that.
That would be an interesting thought exercise for me, just to practice. Just like open that book up at the halfway mark and go, if I had to end it here.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe I got homework out of this. I'm so mad. Famously so bad at homework. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say what are you working on? I know you've got book 3 of the Tainted Dominion, but you were also doing a standalone or something, weren't you?
Yeah. So I had to set it aside just for a bit, just because I don't know, I was weirdly in my head, and I wasn't enjoying it, and I very truly believe if I'm not enjoying this is not the time. And I'm starting to miss it now, so that's usually the sign that it's I'm getting ready to go back. But yeah, so the one that I'm working on now it's Brand New World. It's Prohibition era crime shenanigans. But instead of alcohol, it's mushrooms. They're doing magic mushrooms, and getting magic out of it, literal magic. And so that's been outlawed, and that's what they're smuggling. That's what the crime syndicates are built around. But also, there's dragons, because I felt like it. And it's like, the dragons are connected into the mushroom mycelium, so they're dormant. And if somebody's been using this magic too much, they start to hear like the dormant dragons in their head, and it's like kind of driving them crazy. So it's a giant gangland power struggle between a rural dragon and his puppet, and then the city guy who's like much more powerful and a little bit crazier. So it's like it's not going to be good. It's not going to be a good thing. So that's what I'm working on, and it's 73. What did I say? 73,000 words. I think I desperately want this to be about halfway.
Whoa. What?
Yeah, so
you're okay. So you're, yeah. You're just pacing wise. You're like, yeah, maybe I'm halfway.
Yeah.
See, at 73,000, I'm like, okay, I'm steamrollering towards like the big sort of conclusion at that point.
Yeah. And I think I know what my problem is, and I do suspect that once I'm actually finished the novel, I can go back and prune a lot. But I'm finding myself world building things, like front loading the world building on this one, where it's like, I need to figure this out, so I'm writing it down, and now it's in my book, and my book's too long.
Do you do write a separate world building document kind of thing before you start, or are you sort of world building as you go in the book?
I do like a really brief document of like, okay, this inspiration. I'll name, the main characters. And then I read a lot, and that world builds for me, because it's like, I wouldn't do this, I would do that, and that's for my world, sort of thing. And then I start writing, and that's why all my books are too long.
Yeah. What might help with that is
don't tell me
if you do your
work.
world building in advance and its own document, and go nuts. Like my world building documents will be like, I don't know, 20 to 50,000 words long of just me detailing magic system stuff, detailing political.
I'm so
climates.
impressed by that skill. Like, I haven't unlocked it yet, because I find until I know what the people are doing, I don't actually have any clue what the world needs to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. See, I find by having it written down to start, I don't need to write it into the book, because it's sort of it's informing the background for me. And so it only ever gets mentioned if it needs to. If it's actually part of the story. And if it's not actually part of the story, like the vast majority of the world building I do is a complete fucking waste of time, because it never makes it into the book. But it's
not, because it gets you like a power boost to push you forward.
Yeah. And that's how you get that the reader finishes the book with the feeling like, oh, this is like so much bigger. Like this is all just part of a bigger world, and rather than like, yeah, it's a big world. I saw and read about every single little piece of it, kind of thing.
Every time you say that, it sounds like you're making beef, but also I do genuinely know that you like that book. So, like, it's such a weird way to give a compliment.
It's confrontational compliments, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the exact opposite of my aggressive positivity.
It's aggressive negativity. Wait, no.
No, because it's still a compliment. Like, you liked it, so
yeah, that was.
I'm here now. Yeah. Okay, so what are you working on then?
Okay, so a book which actually should be coming back from my editor later today.
Now, yeah.
Dust of the Dead is my grimdark grannies, is what I was sort of jokingly calling it.
That's gonna be a great marketing sentence, though. Like you call it that as a joke, but like if you obviously have to call it by its regular title, but calling it Grimdark Grannies, people are gonna be like, "Excuse me, what?" And they're gonna remember that book.
I find every time I feel like I've got something like that, it's just a huge flop. It's like, oh, Fletcher wrote another weird book that no one wants to read. You know, but so that one, that's going to come back soon. I will do whatever edits
They're
I'm
humans
doing.
this time.
Yeah, so this is all. There are non-humans in that world, but all the main characters, the main characters are humans and grannies.
Okay.
I love the idea of, sort of women in their 60s aren't sort of doing enough heroic fantasy, and it is sort of a heroic fantasy kind of thing. Then that'll go off to my agent, and
we'll see.
Be in limbo for a year and a half before I self-publish it when nobody else wants it. I'm writing the murder mystery War Dog story we talked about in the previous episode. So that's, I don't know, I'm sneaking up on 40,000 words, which means I'm almost half finished, Krystle.
And it's like, it's alchemy or something. Like, I don't know, man. I've been reading Dennis Lehane again. Trying to figure out how he writes short. And I'm so mad because these books shouldn't be short. Like the one I just finished, I think it's 120 or 112K. And I'm like, how did he do it? Like, there's so many named characters in that book. Like, it's an obscene amount of named characters, and yet it's still like, it's short. We don't spend any time talking about feelings. We don't do that, which is a shame. I feel like Kenzie is deeply fucked up, and I think he could be very entertaining if we knew how he felt once in a while. But whatever, that's just me. I don't remember what you're talking about.
Books are they're different beasts, right? You're going for different things. I mean, sometimes, if you want sort of like an emotional exploration, that's going to be a wildly different book than Undead Emperor returns from the grave and conquers planet. That's like, what was his relationship with his father like? It's like, fuck knows. Not part of it.
That's my problem. I just want to know what everyone's relationships are like and how bad they are. I'm trauma dumping into my own novels. That's what's happening. Okay, so 40K and War Dogs.
Yeah, 40K and War Dogs. I've got about 35K into the second insect fantasy, River of Days. I'm kind of setting that aside for now because my heart's just not in it, and I need to, like you said, I need to be invested in the characters, and right now I'm just really angry at them for unrelated reasons. They're not selling enough books, and that's pissing me off.
Oh man,
they need to do better.
Yeah, that's a head trip.
Yeah. So actually, that kind of leads us back to talking about long books, especially long trilogies.
Oh yeah.
I just see that as like, that's insane. It's so difficult because, like, I mean, if you're like, oh, I'm going to write, a trilogy of 300,000 word novels, or like we've talked to people who have 10 book series planned. It's like, so you're 2 books in, and like, if the sales aren't there, are you do you dump it, or do you write it anyway, or do you just sort of like put it off and focus on something else, like write something shorter, try new things, trying to find.
That's what I'm doing.
Where you sort of...
I mean, that's part of why I want so badly to learn how to execute a short novel while still being myself. Like, I do want to make it clear, like, I'm proud of Brightwash and how it turned out. Like, I actually wouldn't change anything in that book, even though it's causing so many headaches now because the second one is even longer. But I just feel like sizes of stories are like skills. They're just, toolboxes, like we have a toolbox and I can do short, I can do a couple thousand words, I can do slightly longer than short, I can do 10K, that's fine. I could probably do 20, 30K, that's fine. And then there's just this big gap my capabilities between like 50K and we'll say 140K that I cannot do that, and then I can do it again.
You're writing in third person, right? Have you ever thought about trying first?
So this one is first.
Oh, okay.
This one is first, and it was intended to be one main character,
but
yeah. Well, but no, I had a good story. I had a good story reason for bringing in the second character. I liked him, but also something that I noticed was like the antagonist of this story is very much in the background. Like he impacts the main character's life a lot in really awful ways, but he's not present. He's not around. He's doing his own thing. He's sending his goons. He's, causing problems. And it very much began to feel like, I don't know, the balance was weird where, I was getting into, 50K before the two characters even interact. And I didn't like it, but also the sequence of events made sense, and I couldn't change it in any way that would bring him in earlier, without breaking the story. And I tried, and like it's part of why it's taken so long to get off the ground, because I was like, I'm doing it wrong. So then I had the idea of the second character who is working for the main bad guy. And so he's in the room with this guy watching all this nefarious stuff happen. And suddenly everything just fell into place of like, so Hugo has this point of view of how bad this is about to be. And Frankie is oblivious, but bad things are happening to him. And it just worked. Yeah. So
are you writing both in first person?
Yeah.
Interesting. It's going to be fun to make sure that they've got such different voices that the reader will never be sort of confused as to who I am.
Yeah, no, I know that. And I think I tried to write Frankie in third person, especially when I decided to do the second character, where it's like, man, this is gonna be shit. Like I'm just gonna write him in third. And he's like, no, bitch, this is my story. I'm gonna tell it the way I want to tell it, and you just have to make it work. So, which is why I was laughing with Daniel about like him talking about his main character talking to him, and it was like, yeah, I feel that. But yeah, I figure what I'll do is I'll do one editing pass of just voice, where I edit all of Frankie's chapters together so that he sounds consistent, and I edit all of Hugo's chapters. I did that with Brightwash, like especially for Lorne, because he's such a fucking little chaos grenade that like he needed his own voice. So I am familiar with it. Hopefully I can pull it off with first. I don't fucking know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned writing, like adding a second character. So that with Dust of the Dead, the one coming back from the editor later, I was writing it so it's like a tight third person, but only one main character to begin with.
Yeah,
and I hit about 50,000 words with her story, and realized I was getting like frighteningly close to the end of the novel. And I was like, oh shit, that's way too short.
Nice.
And then sort of went, oh crap. Like, what if I write, the character on the other side, the sort of protagonist? And so I just set aside the main character, the one main character, and again, like her story was done, wrote the second story, and then just staggered the chapters. And it was like, oh fuck, that actually works. And now you get to see, Yeah. And now it's,
Yeah,
it's, I don't know, 106,000 words or something.
That's a good length. It's a good size for a fantasy novel. Yeah. Yeah, and it just like it was not working. And like I said, I tried. I imagined you yelling at me as I was moving files around in the Scrivener document, because it's like, well, if I just put this conversation first and then but then like all of this other stuff had no reason to exist. But that other stuff, like I tried just starting the story at the conflict, and I was like, "This is shit." But then, yeah, once I added Hugo in, and just him like watching it all, going like, this is a bad situation. Maybe I shouldn't be here anymore." And then he's stuck, and it was too much fun to torture him, so he stays.
So that's it. You like torturing your characters for a long time, whereas I want to torture my characters for a little while and then move on and torture somebody else quickly.
I think part of my problem is, that kid, like, or that stereotype of the kid that follows their parents around going, but why? But why? But why? Why is the sky blue? Because it reflects the ocean. Why? All of that. I never grew out of that. Ever. I still do it. I drive my poor husband insane. And then I bring that energy to the story. And I'm asking myself, okay, but why? And the answers happen on the page. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Let's move on.
So you don't sort of figure out all the various character motivations ahead of time? Your discovery writing?
The main character, yes. But I think, like, like I said, I'm at like 70K right now. And I think this weekend I was like sitting down with Kareem just brainstorming like the family dynamics of the main character. Because it's like, okay, so why is Roderick so insistent on getting control of this farm? Like, why does he care? And it's like, I should figure this out now, because I knew he wanted it and that was the impetus of the story. But then it's like, so what's the power grab here? Like, what's the angle? And so I figured it out at about the 60,000 word mark. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's a good reason. And then I kept going.
Yeah, I definitely find when I don't have a really firm grasp on what the characters want, and that's antagonists and protagonists and all that shit, that's when things meander and I start having people wandering around a city having long conversations during pub, but and usually at some point like that sort of that peters out and I sit there looking at the document thinking, the fuck what does he want? And then it's like, shit, I have to go back and delete shit and go like, okay, start again.
I usually know, especially like for the main cast, for Frankie, for Hugo, for Roderick, I didn't know for Hugo right away. It took me the longest time. Like my thing for this was like, if The Departed took place in Prohibition and also had magic. And so I don't know if you're familiar with The Departed, but it's like the whole plot of that story is the criminal undercover. The undercover cop is chasing a cop who's an undercover criminal, and it's just this big circle of like them looking for each other, and Jack Nicholson, basically, and so for that it was like, is he a cop? Is he like a criminal informant? Like, what am I doing with this one guy? And it took me forever to figure that out. And actually, once I started writing his character, it was like, oh, okay, I get it. That's what you're doing, and that's why he's actually like, he's been pinched, and he's trying to not go to jail for several murders that he's committed. And that's what I mean, where it's like, I can't figure this stuff out until I know who the people are, and once I know who they are, then it's like, oh, okay, that's why I made that decision, because you need to do that stupid, ridiculous thing. So yeah, I can't relate to the ability to decide ahead of time.
Yeah, different writing styles. I like
Yeah.
to have a firm, at least, sorry, firm is an exaggeration, some idea
So,
who the characters are
yeah.
kind of before the thing starts. I kind of want to know what everyone wants. I tend to be a little lax on the antagonist side. I'm often sort of too focused on what the main character wants, and then I'll get partway into the book and be like, why the fuck is this other person sort of resisting him? Like,
such an asshole.
What's in it for him? Yeah, like, and so it's like, all right, you got to go back and like, now I need to understand both sides. But yeah, different process.
I wonder if it's like a focus difference where you're telling a story. Excellent stories. I don't mean that as a Fletcher compliment, but they're excellent stories. And you're telling a story, like I'm thinking of Neuroska Groans, where you were telling a story of how our personal memories shape us as people and what happens if you fuck with that. And so you're able to make decisions ahead of time because you know what the story is. Whereas I have the people first. It's like I wanna tell a story about a person who was going through this thing, and then so I can't figure out the world building stuff until I understand who those people are, and then after that it's like, oh, I see. I'm telling a story about this thing, and I wonder if that's the difference.
Yeah, maybe our processes are so radically different. Like, I can't comprehend not writing chronologically. Like, I start at the beginning of the story, and then I write the story in order that shit happens, and then I end when the story's over. And the idea of like, oh, I'm going to start swapping chapters around, it's like, you can't fucking do that because like that's not when that happened. But like, I get it, you can, and then you tweak stuff, and you make it work.
It's like big moments, and for me, it's like a decision of what's the best on ramp for these big moments. And sometimes I get them out of order, where you start up here and then you drop off, and then nothing makes sense after. And it's just like I have to figure out how to build the ramp so that that big moment hits the way I want it to. In this case, witnessing a murder. As you do.
Alrighty. What do we... Oh, look at that.
Yeah, we're doing great. We talk a lot.
We do talk a lot.
One of us talks a lot.
We will wrap it here.
Yeah.
And there was something I wanted to say, but it's gone because
I talk too much. Be honest.
I'm a little gap-headed anyway. So I guess thanks for joining us, and join us next week when we discuss.
We have a guest or something. Oh no, wait.
Yeah, maybe we have a guest.
We're going to discuss.
Pretend we know what we're talking about.
We'll discuss the perfect recipe for waffles. That's what we're going to do.
Waffles, processed flour. Are you crazy?
Yeah, that's where the happy drugs are. Okay. Thanks for listening to me babble about shit. Maybe I'll write a short book now. I don't know.